on as dense fog and low visibility engulfed Delhi. The capital city's airport faced major disruptions on Monday morning, with multiple flights getting diverted. More than 400 flights were delayed and 100 cancelled, impacting the network due to Delhi's status as a main hub for 4 airlines. Now, several passengers found themselves stranded inside their flights in Delhi's international airport on Sunday, enduring hours of delay as adverse weather conditions prevented planes from taking off. Upon landing, several flights queued up on the runway due to lack of availability of parking spaces for incoming aircraft. Now, frustrated passengers took to social media to talk about how they had been waiting for hours inside the aircraft, and they blamed airlines for not giving out essential information. In fact, in one unfortunate incident, a passenger punched the pilot for making the announcement of delay. Union Minister of Civil Aviation Jyotiraditya Scindia stepped in. He said authorities were forced to shut airport operations as flights couldn't operate in zero visibility. He also released some guidelines for the Delhi airport to mitigate such situations in the future. But is it time to strengthen the structural capabilities of Delhi's airport to handle peak transit? And what kind of contingency plans should airlines be ready for? And how should they ensure timely communication? Do we have airline technology to handle adverse weather conditions, and what are the rights of passengers on extraordinary delays? And of course, where does the buck stop, and who has the accountability? Those are the questions we are asking tonight. Joining us is Parvez Damania, who is an aviation expert. We also have Vidit Baya, who is a frequent flyer. We also have Rifka Verma, a passenger who was stranded in an Air India flight last night. And starting with Vidit Baya, sir, you have been flying quite a lot. Tell me, how many times have you faced situations like this, and what has been your go-to situation?
So, hi Vasudha, thanks for having me. Happy Makar Sankranti to everyone. When it comes to airlines, the idea is to get from point A to B, and that's what airlines are for, and that's what we as passengers pay for. However, obviously, climatic conditions like fog, that's actually under nobody's control. So if you basically talk about my experience, be it Air India, be it Indigo, you experience these situations all throughout. My family was flying to Hyderabad. We were delayed for 6 hours. We were flying Indigo. We weren't given any amenities. We weren't given food. We weren't asked for water. So conditions on the ground seem deplorable. I think the very idea that basic business ethics have gone for a toss in the industry is concerning. So the very idea that the airline needs to be proactive when it comes to their communication. They need to be flexible when it comes to offering their rebookings. And I had another colleague of mine who was flying from Delhi to Calcutta, and her flight was delayed for 8 hours. The airline kept on saying that we are rebooking the flight, we will have you rebooked on another flight, but it never really happened, and the flight was actually cancelled. So the idea that you don't have efficient ground handling systems and there are no priority services for people who are actually elderly or for people who actually need emergency services, all these needs to be taken care of.
Right. Mr. Damania, there was this dense fog that lasted for over 100 hours on Sunday. We also hear of fog committees often working on, managing situations like this. But what can flights do in this regard? Because, clearly the airport initiates low visibility procedures, and measures are then aimed at making landing flights easier. But do we have technology that can help flights navigate this kind of weather?
There is a certain kind of training that some pilots undergo. Cat 3, that also works till a certain limit, beyond which is the fog crosses a certain point and the visibility becomes completely zero. Then there is no way the plane can take off. It is completely beyond the control of the airline to control the weather, and at a certain stage they become completely helpless. But at the same time, cooperating with the passengers, helping them out and making their life easier for the passengers at the airport, all airlines can do, and they should absolutely do. Taking care of their consumer and passengers, helping them out in every way possible, food, water. The worst part is sometimes airlines do not give out the correct information. Keeping people informed, telling them the truth will always work. And that is what airlines should aim to be. They cannot change the weather, but at least basic amenities they have to provide. That is absolutely a must.
Right.
But at the same time, what happened, one passenger assaulted the pilot. That was completely wrong and completely unforgivable. It is not in the hands of the pilot. No airline wants to delay their aircraft. No pilot wants to just sit in the plane despite duty time limitation gets over. You
Right.
need another set of pilots. The complications keep on getting multiplied.
Right.
No airline wants that, no passenger wants that, no consumer wants that.
Right. Rivka, how important do you think is it for airlines to have a contingency plan in place? Because you went through this ordeal, and also tell us how traumatic it was, and what is it that you think was the biggest problem in the way the situation was handled?
Yeah, so like the points that have been mentioned already, I think the biggest problem was that there was no information that was relayed to the passengers. And, I think we were constantly being told that, the boarding is happening now, or, the crew is coming. But, there was so much chaos because there was no proper information flow. So I don't think that, airlines have this kind of contingency plan where they say that, okay, in a situation where there is dense fog, flights are going to be delayed. This is how we need to convey the information to the passengers. We'll put them up in our lounge. We'll feed them, and these kind of reimbursements or refunds will be given. This is if it's delayed after a certain point, like 8 hours, 9 hours, people are on the ground. We'll put them up in a hotel. It's all just very chaotic. Somebody is getting off the flight and saying, okay, offload me. They're scrambling to offload someone. Somebody is saying, give me a refund. They're scrambling to, give someone a refund. So there are no protocols that are in place. It's almost like you need to have a handbook to say that, in this situation, this is exactly what will happen, and these are the measures that we'll take.
Right. Shriram Khanna, who's a consumer activist, joins us. Shriram, let's, get to the bottom of what Rivka is saying. What are the rights of passengers specifically when they are on a delayed flight, and especially when it comes to extraordinary delay, like 17 hours, 12 hours?
You see,
actively communicating delays and cancellations, do you think that is one thing? But is accommodation a part of it? Because, that seems to be the confusion, because food and water is one thing. But how do you deboard passengers from the flight, because there are security aspects, there are rules in place?
You see, the rights of passengers arise out of what is known as the civil aviation regulations. The DGCA has framed civil aviation regulations under the law, and they are notified, and every airline is bound to follow them. Unfortunately, after notifying the regulations, the DGCA or the Ministry of Civil Aviation does not have any teeth to ensure that the regulations are followed. For example, there is a regulation which says that if the flight is delayed beyond a particular period, the passengers are entitled to serving of refreshments and food. There are also provisions of refunds beyond a certain period and flight cancellations and long delays. Now, all these regulations are there, but at the airport, who is watching whom? If an airline violates, there is nobody at the airport, no duty manager, no official of the DGCA, no Ministry Civil Aviation official is available to say, look, this is wrong, you can't do it. So what is happening is that DGCA has created a soft regulation. The DGCA is on a very friendly terms with the airlines, and so is the Ministry of Civil Aviation. And both of them feel that it is their duty to make sure that the airlines make maximum money, because these guys are losing money during COVID and so on and so forth. They don't care a shit about passengers. Passengers are only a byproduct. क्योंकि हम प्लेन उड़ा रहे हैं और आप बैठ रहे हो, इसलिए आपका ध्यान रखेंगे. We'll serve you coffee, we'll give you tea, we'll charge you for sandwiches, whatever. Right. So the entire ecosystem of the airlines is built on everything going normal.
Right, right.
Boarding,
that's an interesting point. Everything going normal water, seems to be what airlines want. But Mr. Damania, a lot of anger is also being seen among passengers for being confined within flights and they're being forced to wait. There's of course a cascading impact to flight delays because one thing leads to other, and we know that parking spaces are already taken, some terminals are not working, and flights are, eventually waiting to land at the airport. They're all queued. But what are the rules that prevent them from being deboarded? Can we have zones where, passengers could be disembarked and asked to wait? I'm asking this because I often travel with my toddler, and I was thinking that, probably having to wait inside an aircraft for so many hours could be so troubling for old people and especially to also children.
No, what is surprising is in the aviation business, there are manuals for absolutely everything. Everything is run according to manuals which are approved by the DGC and government. I fail to understand, and now these airlines are not small. They're some of the biggest airlines in the world. I fail to understand why would not they have a proper manual and a protocol to do when ABC happens or XYZ happens. And that manual should be accessible to everybody. The passengers should know what their rights are. People should know what will happen. Problem is when these problems occur, there is too many gray areas. The duty officers are confused, the managers are confused, they're not available, they're not accessible, and the whole system collapses. I have been through the collapse on both sides. So I know, what I feel the government should ask the airlines to have a proper operation manual.
Right.
During fogs, delays, cancellations, and the problem. If there is a manual and there's a protocol laid out, then the confusion won't occur. So why can't there be a manual for these kind of situations? Because these kinds of situations will occur and will keep occurring in the future. This Delhi fog story has been throughout as many years I can remember flying, this has happened.
Right.
And it does happen many days and the entire system collapses. What can the civil aviation minister come and do? These certain things are beyond the control. So what I am saying, if we have a laid out manual, if we have laid out rules, regulations, and those rules, regulations should be available to the consumer. Okay,
right.
After 3 hours, this is what you will get. After 5 hours, this is you will get. And if they don't provide according to the rules and regulations, they should be penalized. What your consumer activist was saying, that nobody follows up on this. The rules are there, but nobody's saying. There was a lot of talk that on the ticket, there will be a printed rights of the consumers. That has never happened.
Right.
So these kind of things happen, these people will be more alert and more careful in the near future.
Right.
Because as a consumer, these things should not happen. And I'm sure the airlines realize the importance of the consumer and how important is he to the part of the business. He's not a part of the business, he's the most important part of the business. So taking the consumer for granted is definitely not on.
Right. Vidit, as a young person who flies quite often, tell us, we also heard of this very unfortunate incident where, on an Indigo flight, this passenger actually assaulted the captain who was making announcements. So how do you see an incident like this, and what would your advice be to airlines and also, all the stakeholders involved, because you've seen passengers sort of suffer in flights like this. What would your advice be to sort of handle situations like this?
I think what actually happened on the Indigo flight, which was from Delhi to Goa, and it was Mr. Kataria who had attacked the pilot. It's very unfortunate, and it's actually unapologetic. It should not be. However, I think recent news came out that he's been let out on bail. So I think in such incidences, you obviously have legal authorities take proper legal action on this. But as Mr. Damania actually stated, proper communication is something which is, like the very core of the industry. And when you have people, actually the airline staff talking to the passengers and communicating what is actually going on, you have people at calm, and people actually can express what problems they are going through. So once a proper communication channel is established, that's when a lot of problems which are arising every day, be it with Air India, be it with Indigo, be it with SpiceJet, actually you'll cut down on a lot of those problems. And this will actually make the industry a much better place to survive and actually travel with.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Baya. Thank you, Mr. Damania. Thank you, Mr. Khanna. And thank you, Ms. Verma, for joining us. Effective communication seems to be the way forward, but clearly airlines have to do a lot more to assuage passengers, especially those on delayed flights.